Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today we're going to internally review this CM.517. Hey guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do like and subscribe, because you're going to be really helping me out, especially the like button, because that helps me get seen. Point on safety: if you are going to do these sort of things, make sure you're taking safety precautions, batteries out, mags out, that sort of thing, and iPro on, just to make sure. So we've got this from a recent unboxing, and I'll put the link down below to this. Hopefully you've watched it. If not, go and check it out. I'm going to have a look at disassembling it. So first of all then, to get rid of the muzzle brake, it is just a normal negative thread, 14mm neg thread. Bit messy under there, I assume that's the plastic, and it does look a bit chopped up. Probably wants a brand new muzzle brake in there. Get rid of the mag. The top sight, just finger tightened on, comes on and off as easily as that. It is plastic, but is reliable and will sort of do you well. In terms of the RIS unit then, you've just got a couple of screws. I don't think I'll be able to fully take it off. You've got to knock a pin out of here. This pin here will just push out with a bit of force and really removing that. You've then got a screw here and a screw under here, and that'll take the front sight post off. You've then got two screws here, and then the whole front RIS will just slide off. You've then got a traditional AR style barrel nut that will just undo with either an armorer's wrench or with a pair of adjustable pliers, grips, and it'll come off, and you can change it to any sort of barrel and front end that you want, really. Next thing then, we'll get into the body then. We're going to take this pin out. There you go. So number 3 hex head in there. Just undo that. And pull that out. Make sure you keep all the screws together, just so you don't lose any parts. And I'm just going to pull on the body. Now what I will need to do is just lift that up. Obviously there's no screw bolt in here to catch the dust cover against, so I'm just going to lift it, and I'm lifting the charging handle out and up off of that notch there, and that comes out of the way. There's our barrel and hop, which is done pretty well. That's the hop fully off, so I'll put the hop fully on. That is, there we go, the hop fully on. There's quite a bit of hop in there. It was hopping 2.5s for the range check really easily, so I would assume that hopping a 0.23 might even be a possibility with the amount of adjustment that's in there, but I haven't tried that. It's just obviously with the amount of adjustment that's in there, I could see being able to take the base plate off. Obviously our battery's already out. Our stock can come off as well, so I'm just going to put it to the end, and then this style stock we just pull down on this tab and it comes off. Now some stocks don't allow you to pull down like that. What you have to do is get a screwdriver in and wedge it the other way and bring it down, but ultimately you're looking for a way to pull this pin down and out of the way so that it comes, as you can see down there, it comes out of the way like that to release it off of this tract here on the underside of this stock tube. So next thing I'm going to do, get my extra long screwdriver, and I'm going to undo the Phillips head that's down there. There we go. And I'm going to drop the screw out, and there's the little plate that we need as well. Now when it's in, as you're looking down the gun, that little plate should go up like that, and if you look carefully, you probably can't see it in there, but there's 3 little notches that match with the center notch, and then underneath each of those sides there. This will then pull off. Now what I'm going to have to do is very carefully get the wiring twisting around a little bit, and as long as you're careful, it will come through. When you go coming out of this hole down there, you can see, oh, it's quite wide in this one actually, which is helpful. Usually it's a smaller gap than that, so you often have to put the black wire on top through the smaller opening at the top. It's not an issue with this one. They've obviously learnt their lessons well there. Either that or Taiwan Gun have done it for me, in which case I appreciate that immensely. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to drop the pistol grip base plate off. We've just got 2 little Phillips heads in here. done that many of these now, I could almost do this with my eyes closed. There we go. So pop these connectors off. Now, in an ideal world, these connectors, as Kadamski has said on my Discord server, which if you haven't joined, make sure you go and look at it, and my gaming channel as well, should be soldered onto the motor for the best quality sort of connection. Obviously, they're not, so we deal with these spade connectors because they offer us the best alternative for now until somebody comes up with something better. So there's our standard generic CYMA motor. There's the spring off the motor. Stick that to the motor itself, and then we've got two more Phillips heads in here. We've got one at the bottom right and one at the top left. Switch to that one. Beauty is with these, it doesn't take very long to get them apart. So those are loose. I'm going to try and keep them in place just because they're an absolute pain to get back in otherwise. That's out, and I'm going to leave that resting like that to hopefully keep those screws in there. Now we're going to do the mag release, which luckily they've started using Phillips head screws for, which makes me happy. In some cases, some brands have still use a tiny little hex head or tiny little Torx. You know, the big screws like that make life so much easier for everybody if people use those. So if you are a manufacturer, please use larger screws in the mag release. It would make Pheas very, very happy. I'm sure a lot of people, when they've come to try and disassemble their own gun, they find that their mag release has got a tiny little grub screw sort of fitting in it that they just don't have themselves. So that was the rear body pin not jumped out. I'm just going to push this trigger pin out. Now I'm assuming, because it's partly out on this side, that it's going to come out to the right. So I'm just going to take this off camera and punch this out. So I was right, the teeth were on the right hand side here, coming out. And now we're free to release the gearbox. There goes the bolt release. Release the gearbox from the body. And it's our standard one. We've got lots of blue in there, which makes me happy that there's blue stuff in there. We've got metal bushings, so it's looking like a fairly standard AR gearbox as we're accustomed to seeing from CYMA. So let's get this open. So you've got 4 little screws across the top, make sure they stay together, and then the other screws are all longer. If you are wondering about the white specks on my arms, it's because I've been decorating in my house. And if my wife sees this, I truly do love decorating. Lies, it's all lies. I actually hate it with a passion. So that was the last screw out then. So we're now going to split this gearbox and see what comes out. So I'm going to put the screwdriver in the back and I'm going to twist it up like that, and that's to put the downward pressure on the spring so it doesn't all fire out the back. This has happened many times before, much to my wife's annoyance. So I can see that the piston is partially cocked back, which is a slight issue, but it's fine. It means it's going to make a loud bang. There we go. Oh, I've missed a screw. I missed the screw on the trigger cut off. There we go. Release that. So we are looking at blue plastic as we have become accustomed to now, even in their budget end, which is good. You know, it shows even better value for money than they used to be. We've got the fairly standard looking gear set in there. Metal bushings. There is some attempt at shimming as well, which is pretty good. It does sound a little bit like the motor could do with a little bit of adjusting, but in general it looks not too bad. Now this marking around here might indicate a little bit of poor shimming, because I would, by the looks of it, say that the sector gear is potentially rubbing on the spur gear, but I could be wrong on that. We'll check out the compression, although I am not expecting much. So we'll test it. So all I'm going to do is, it's a vented cylinder. I'm just going to put my finger over the end and I'm just seeing if I can get any sort of air seal. So put my finger over the end, absolutely nothing. I can pretty much freely go in there. There is a tiny amount of pressure there, which, considering it's doing sort of 350 FPS, that means that that spring must be still fairly strong. And obviously if there was no compression there, there's definitely not going to be any with the nozzle on either. So at least we know where we stand. I would assume that, safely assume that if I put an O-ring in there, the FPS would jump massively. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it as is for now. We're just doing internal review. The spring is pretty strong. It is a linear spring on this occasion. A normal AEG would use a non-linear spring, so you'd have like the sort of tighter compressions in the middle and then more regular pitch either side of that. You've got your standard CYMA trigger block there. All looks fit and well. Obviously pasted in this blue grease, but again, it's working fairly well. I can't really knock it. You know, for £50, this is a whole lot of gun for £50. I really cannot complain whatsoever. A little bit of work could be done on the compression, an O-ring, possibly a lower sort of strength spring to give you the same FPS if you up your air seal compression in there. Might even give you a little bit more rate of fire, a little bit more rounds per second out of there. But in bad for in all for £50, that's a lot of gun. So let's go for the reassembly then. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that lift that back up again. I'm going to make sure that the sector gear is turned so the teeth are not in the way of the piston. I've got the piston assembly there. So I've got the piston in the cylinder with the nozzle on, and the tappet plate links into the nozzle like that. Nice, and so it should move. And I'm going to grab the spring, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to latch the spring onto the little notch there at the front, which is really tiny in this one, and then stretch it back. So I'm just going to hook it on there, and then I'm going to stretch it back. And I'm looking to, oh, it dropped straight in. I'm looking to fit, ooh, cable go back in. There we go. So these notches, holes here, there's one on each side, and they fit with a notch in each side of the case to centralize it, which is done. And I'm looking to drop the piston, there we go, onto its track. So these runners should sit in these runners here, obviously on the other side. Everything's nicely put down, so I'm going to put the other side on. At this point on, no I'm not, I'm going to put the spring in. Would be helpful, wouldn't it? Right, so this is where the issues start now, because the wires start coming out everywhere. It's okay though, I'm a professional. Right, here we go. So you can go in, I'm going to compress that down, and this is where it becomes useful to have like 7 arms or something. So I'm going to push that in, and that, it's got a latch on it. The spring guide is plastic, but it does all right in this. So these little latches, there's one on either side, and it sits into a hole for it to keep it all secure and in place. So I'm going to keep that brace down while bringing this in and hoping nothing else pings out of place. So I've got that in there now. The next job is to push the trigger block in, trigger stopper in, which has just pinged back out again. And there it is, look, being a little, yep. And now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to figure out that wire. Right, let's do this without trying to float it in the air. There we go, managed to get it back together. A little bit of messing about just to position that black wire because it didn't want to stay in its little track, but we got there in the end. So it's now together, making sure that it's sitting together flush, which it is. So I can screw it back together now, and we can drop it back into the body. When you are putting these screws in so that you don't damage the threads, make sure that you twist back until you hear the click, like that, and then screw it in. That makes sure that you are in the threads properly and you're not just trying to force it through new threads. All these screws should just go in happily without any real pressure needed to get them going. So click and then screw. So there we go, we've got the gearbox back together. We can drop it back into the receiver now. Those wires down in the pistol grip. There we go. Just pop that in. It does need a little bit of forcing to just pop it in. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push the trigger pin back in, teeth on right, making sure I line that up. There we go. I should be able to see through that hole easily and then just tap that pin back into place. Next I'm going to put the rear body pin back in and then screw that in. Tighten that down. Now I can only really finger tighten that because there's no way to really grip that unless I get some sort of grips on there to hold it. So you just have to tighten it as tight as you can. But not worry too much about it. Just checking the wiring's not in the way of the motor, which it's not. So we can bring the pistol grip back in. I've missed a screw off the gearbox. This happens to the best of us. I had missed the trigger cut-off screw. I can't believe nobody reminded me. There we go. Tighten that down. There we go. Now we can get on with it. There we go. Now we're on with it now. Next thing I'm going to do is put the pistol grip on. Now I'm going to be careful to try and keep those screws in place so that I don't have to try and fight with them to get them back down the pistol grip again. So the wires, the red comes up the, hopefully you can see that, the middle one at the front there, and the black one comes up the middle one at the back, and then the pistol grip just slides down. And now I can, again using the twist back until it clicks and then screw in. And then twist back, click, and then screw in. And you should be able to feel the pistol grip getting tighter down. And make that tight, perfect. So I'm going to move the black wire over to this side and I'm going to push the red wire down. The red wire needs to come round the motor hole. Hopefully you can see that. So the red wire's come from here and it's gone round this edge and up the back. And then I can drop the motor in, which I might have to do sideways because the spring keeps dropping off. Gone in the wrong way. make sure that the red terminal ends at the front. So I'm just going to drop the black connector on there, the red connector on at the front there. I can see it's the red because it's got a little red painted terminal there. This bit can be a bit of a pain with a little motor adjustment screw, so I'm just going to drop that there. And what I'm going to do is drop this into place without knocking that off. I think it's in. There we go. And try and keep that down whilst I drop the 2 screws in. There goes one. Might need a good bit of force to keep that down. Now these are not the strongest of plastic pistol grips, so you may find over time, if you are working on your gun a lot, that this plastic might start to fail, so may need replacing at some point, just obviously to keep in mind. So next thing we're going to do then is I'm going to put the sling plate back on, and then I'm going to put the stock tube down. Fortunately, it's been opened up quite nicely and easily in there, so get that down there. Chuck that in there, and what I'm going to do is hopefully I'm going to get this back in position exactly as it should go, like that. So I'm going to lean it like that and drop it in, and that is literally like, it might as well be a lottery win. Everything is literally slotted in exactly where it should be. First time, I have never had that happen to me before. Maybe I should run out and play the lottery quick. Right, so I'm going to tighten that down now. So I turned it backwards until it clicked, and then tighten down, and there we go, that's nice and tight. I can roll that up and push it in, put the stock on. I will put the link again in the description below to the stock mod for this, so you can mod your stock. We are getting there pretty quick now. Next we're going to do the mag catch, so I'm just going to drop it in that side. Then the spring goes on top and the button, and then we're just going to tighten that down. So turn it back till it clicked. What I find helps is I get my thumb partly in the way and just push the button down just to help me get the screw started and keep it in place until it locks down. Nice and free moving. It's looking good. Not much left to do now, so I'm going to put the bolt release back in place. I'm going to bring in the upper receiver. I'm just going to slide that into place. I'm going to push the bolt release out the way, and there we go. I was just going to say I might need to pull the charging handle up and over the notch on the back of the gearbox, and then I'm just going to do it again, click it into place. The front body pin can go in, the screw goes in, tighten that down. This one will tighten more, it's obviously shaped at one side, as you can see there, so it's got something to resist again, so make sure you don't mix the two up. And then we'll screw that back on. There we go, it doesn't need an O-ring behind that, and there you go. You have fully disassembled, checked internals and reassembled this CM517 by CYMA. I hope that's been helpful to you. Please do make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.